July was born on the 22nd of October 1939 in New Amsterdam, Berbice in British Guyana. His father, Ferdinand Jean July, came from France as a young man and married Rosalind Beryl Ezekiels. Peter was educated at Queen's College in Georgetown, whilst boarding with his two aunts, Daisy and Millicent Ezekiels. Daisy worked for Barclays Bank, and Peter was always intrigued by the devotion she applied to her official duties and her ability to do complex calculations. At 18, and just after sitting his Cambridge GCE exams, Peter was invited for interviews with Barclays and the Royal Bank of Canada for prospective employment. He was impressed with the Royal Bank's manager Clare and candid description of what he could expect in a banking career, and started his job at the Royal Bank of Canada in New Amsterdam on the 4th of February 1957. His first duties included riding a bicycle through the town delivering bills of exchange, writing up and balancing the cash book and general ledger. Twice a year he was required to calculate interest on savings accounts. In 1960, at the age of 21, he was transferred to the head office in Georgetown, starting as a clerk, and a year later he was sent to the Trinidad head office on Marine Square. The bank's executive recognized the young man's potential, having put him on fast-track mode. In 1962, Peter July decided to marry and sought the approval of his manager, which he was required to do. He was advised that it was not the bank's policy to allow him to get married at this stage of his career, as he could not afford it, and that there were plans to send him to St. Vincent on promotion that would provide him with a raise in salary. Peter explained that he was not prepared to change his plans. The bank recanted, and Peter married Julia Ann Ferreira on 14th July 1962 in British Guyana. On return from his honeymoon, he was then assigned to the newly opened branch at 18 Park Street, Port of Spain, with a small increase in salary. During this time in Trinidad, the young couple had 4 children: Michelle, Marcel, Raquel, and Peter. In 1971, he was transferred to St. Lucia's branch manager and welcomed the responsibility of running his own shop, opening 2 additional branches while there. He also had the further blessing of having his 5th child, Rachel. While in St. Lucia in 1974, Peter July got involved with the Rotary Club. He believed in the work of the Rotary and remained involved even after he was transferred to the San Fernando branch of the Royal Bank. Peter fondly remembers his time at the San Fernando district, particularly the many occasions he and other Rotarians delivered essential supplies to less fortunate families. He describes this as a tremendous and heartwarming experience, especially when long after he left the Rotary Club, he received the Paul Harris Fellow, the club's highest honor. During the early 1970s, bold moves were being employed in the financial sector of Trinidad and Tobago by the government, and in 1973 the Royal Bank of Canada was nationalized and became the Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, renamed RBTT Bank Limited. Peter July was faced with the option of remaining with Royal Bank of Canada or taking a position with a newly nationalized bank. He readily chose the latter. In 1981, at the age of 44, his appointment as a director of the bank was his first executive milestone, and was followed in 1984 by his elevation to deputy managing director, and then to managing director in 1986. The post of chief executive officer was added in 1988. That year, the Young Leadership Program was launched with the objective of building leadership skills among young people and fostering a deeper understanding of service to the community. It evolved from the Star Class program started in 1982 under the guidance of Peter July. By 1997, it was introduced regionally. Meanwhile, he had set his sights on the bank's foray into regional expansion. It did not take a genius to recognize that the way the region and the industry were changing, if the Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago remained a domestic bank at the turn of the century, the regional thrust to integrate the Caribbean, if even only partially successful, would leave them standing still and relegated to being a marginal player. And so, in a bold and risky move, Royal Bank became the first local bank to expand into the region and the Netherlands Antilles. His audacity paid off. The local board, in a tremendous show of confidence, bestowed on him the dual role of Group Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. In 2002, Peter July, having led a rebranding exercise, brought the expanded group comprising 9 commercial banks, 84 regional branches, and 31 associated companies under one name, and RBTT was introduced. Peter Jeuli's role in this process as visionary and leader of the group was of monumental significance. In recognition, he received the International Service Award from the National Coalition on Caribbean Affairs and the Award for Outstanding Contribution to the Caribbean from the American Foundation of the West Indies. Under Jeuli's astute leadership, the group continued to grow and thrive and became very attractive to investors. In October 2007, RBTT Financial Group and Royal Bank of Canada announced their agreement to combine RBC's Caribbean retail banking operations with the RBTT Group. The RBTT Board of Directors, led by Peter Jeuli, approved the deal unanimously. RBTT shareholders voted in favor of the transaction. Peter Jeuli has had a lifetime career with the bank, standing as an exemplar, and his contribution to the nation's social landscape cannot go unnoticed. His wisdom and tenacity has always taken him to the highest pinnacles in business.
Peter is a career banker and like many of us, I think we're a dying breed. If you cut our skin, you're going to find RBTT and I would say RBC blood flowing from us. So born to be a banker, I think he was very visionary. I think he actually took RBTT to the best pinnacle that it could have gotten in the Caribbean, and eventually led us all the way back home in terms of RBC. Passionate about clients, passionate about his staff, and someone who is true and loyal to his word. And I just want to congratulate him today on the award in terms of being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
The Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce is indeed honored to induct Peter Jeuli into the Business Hall of Fame.